Hello and welcome to another episode of The Distinguished Geek. So last year, Atlas Comics were fighting for survival. This year, it's all about the revivals. This is 1954. So, with the relaunch of the timely production era superheroes in December 1953, influenced by the DC Comics Superman adventures airing on TV, Martin Goodman, the publisher of Atlas Comics, waited for the reports of the relaunch. Now, the reports must have been great because Atlas spearheaded a resurrection of its superheroes. However, the preliminary reports must have been incorrect because every single one of the relaunch titles, bar one, was cancelled before the end of 1954. Marvel superheroes would have to wait another 7 years for a comeback. But Atlas Comics didn't cry over spilt milk. They cracked on with business and released new titles, searching for the #1 seller. So new westerns were released with Western Outlaws and Arrowhead. Jungle Comics were released with Jungle Tales and Jungle Action. A military series was released with Navy Action and Marines in Battle. Adventure and Crime series was released with Police Action and Spy Thrillers. And a romance books were released with Girl's Life. Atlas Comics even went all out and released 3D comics with 3D Tales of the West and 3D Action. Each comic came with a pair of 3D glasses in case you misplaced one, and if you misplaced the second one, well, more fool you. Dr. Frederick Wortham, the man on a mission to destroy the comic book industry, has released his book titled Seduction of the Innocent. With public opinion against the comics in 1953 and going back as 1949, when Dr. Wortham first wrote a paper on the subject about comics influencing juvenile delinquency. Even with Atlas Comics coming back with positive reasons for every single issue that Dr. Wortham has, the public opinion still turned against them. With outrage reaching boiling point, the Senate Subcommittee of the Juvenile Delinquency began to investigate Dr. Wortham's issues, with overwhelming effects on the comic book industry. But more on this at the end of the episode. In February, Young Men issue 25 was released, still the leading comic for the superhero genre moving into 1954. Each issue that came out contained a story of the beloved three: Captain America, the Submariner, and the Human Torch. It was the Human Torch who got the limelight on the front cover, as he had the most eye-catching on the newsstands. Atlas didn't hold back when it came to the artwork. The Human Torch was illustrated either by the creator Carl Burgos or the new artist climbing the ranks, Dick Ayers. Captain America was the sole responsibility of John Romita, and the Submariner was handed over to the creator Bill Everett, who progressed into an amazing artist and storyteller from when the Submariner first appeared all those 15 years ago. However, the one issue producing superheroes on this period was the writing. Each superhero story was allocated between 6 to 10 pages to work with, which didn't leave much room for character development, and there was hardly any information on the superhero personal lives. In issue 24, the year before, we found out where the superheroes have been for the last 5 years and present day, but nothing in depth, such as Captain America being a school teacher in between fighting crime. This role was hardly seen, to the point it came across as just a hobby in the spare time. There was nothing earth-shattering with these issues, and unfortunately, Young Men ended in June 1954, only after 5 issues. With the Submariner's limelight in Young Men, he was given back his own title, continuing with the issue number from 1949. Bill Everett used all his skill and talent to bring the imagination to the revival series. Not only did he write Adventures Under the Sea, he added short stories detailing events in the Submariner's life and the development of the character, including when the Submariner first realised he could breathe underwater and when he met the first human being. However, the character was missing his mojo that initially categorised him, and he floated from one adventure to the next without any direction. The Human Torch resumed his title with issue number 36 from where he left off back in 1949. He was reunited with his sidekick Toro, and both fought criminals, communists and aliens from around the galaxy. However, the stories were somewhat wooden, and the Human Torch's ability of using his flame powers became repetitive, and the comic became a series without enthusiasm and didn't engulf the readers, even though it continued to dominate its artwork. With the return of the superhero colleagues, the Submariner and the Human Torch, Captain America returned to his title in May 1954 and resumed from where he left off in February 1950. As before, Captain America and his partner in battle, Bucky, fought enemies that damaged the integrity of the nation. However, in Captain America's golden era, Captain had the Second World War and the Nazis to influence the stories and to provide an infinite chain of evil, hostile villains. But in the 1950s, there was the Cold War, which didn't provide much of a story base for the revival. Even the Red Skull, who was once the most evil villain the Captain fought, was recast embarrassingly as a communist agent. On top of that, the stories were really short. From surveys, they found that buyers buying the comic in this period wanted multiple stories in every magazine, but due to short amount of pages, it prevented development of the characters, conflicts, and any interesting situations that the characters got themselves into. In 1954, Dr. Frederick Worthen's book became a bestseller and set off a chain reaction of complaints from worried parents all over America, concerned about what their children were reading. Protests and even boycotts of stores selling comics became a daily scene, including mass comic book burnings. Local kids were instructed to take their comic books to their local church or school playground, where they were burnt in mass bonfires. The situation got out of hand that the Senate Subcommittee of the Juvenile Delinquency spent 2 days hearing testimony on the context of the comics, and Dr. Frederick Worthen was at the forefront of the witnesses. The hearing ended inconclusively, and imminent danger was on its way. The comic book industry had to think of something to stop the US government enforcing regulatory surveillance upon them. The industry had to keep guard upon their own comics. So, with an act of self-defense, the publishers banded together as the Comics Magazines Association of America and formed the Comics Code Authority, or CAA. The CAA reviewed new releases and administered the code unanimously agreed upon, a code of ethics. Reject or return to the publishers if the material was seen harsh or in bad taste. Any comics that passed this censorship would be allowed to carry the stamp of the CAA on the front covers. Any comics that didn't pass the censorship would be sent back to publishers unopened or recycled back to a pulp. So last week's question was, in 1953, it was the first appearance of which secret agent? And the correct answer is Mr. James Bond. So well done to Chris Jones for the correct answer, and I'm glad you're loving the videos, so thank you very much. Right, this week's question is, in 1954, it was the maiden flight for which plane? And for bonus questions is, can you name the company who built it and where did it take off from? If you'd like to leave the correct answer in the comments below, and I'll feature your name in next week's episode. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Thanks guys, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.
The